Hey everybody, this is Ian Mabon of LightCycleAstrology.com. Hope you're all doing well. Well, we've made it to the end of the week now, and here we are getting to the full moon that is coming through this weekend. Let's go ahead and pull up the real-time clock. This is a very, very dynamic full moon. There are lots of aspects coming through, perfecting, engaging, all around the time of this full moon. So by about February the 3rd on this Friday, we're going to notice that the moon jumps into Leo. And even though technically, the full moon would begin at that oppositional moment to the sun, I think we're going to be noticing the energies of the full moon Friday afternoon as the moon jumps into the sign of Leo and begins to share that whole sign opposition to the sun. And as we move forward here, it's going to be on February the 4th. The moon is getting close, but it's really going to be around Sunday afternoonish, probably around 1. Let's see here. Yeah, probably around 1:30 p.m. Eastern time that the actual moon moves into that degree-based opposition to the sun. Now, as I was saying, this is a really super dynamic full moon because for a couple of reasons here. For one, there's all kinds of aspects that are in alignment. We have Mercury has just moved into a degree-based sextile with Neptune and is applying to perfect to that degree. And we have exalted Venus still making that square and pretty much perfecting or just recently perfected to that square to Mars by the time the full moon comes through. We also have Uranus kind of T-squaring both the lights. And of course, then we have the opposition from the sun to the moon, which we always have during full moons. So it's almost like everybody is really kind of involved in this one. You've got Mercury, Neptune. Really, the only planet that seems to be kind of on his own is Jupiter here. And of course, Jupiter is receiving whole sign sextile, almost near degree-based support from his domicile lord Mars here in Gemini. And Mars is receiving some action from Venus. So even though Jupiter isn't directly receiving any kind of aspect, it's as if Jupiter is, vicariously getting things through Mars. So it seems this is a packed full house where everybody seems to be involved. So that's really dynamic. That's a more challenging chart to decipher and put all of the pieces together. But I'll try to give you a few themes now that sort of get you cooking in such a way where you kind of know what recipe this could bring about here. So let me go ahead and pull up my notes now, and we'll get into some of the themes for this Leo full moon. Yeah. So basically, given the fact that exalted Venus is perfecting her square to Mars and the moon is in the place of the queen, the moon in Leo becomes kind of like the queen, right? This may go one of two ways, in my opinion. Passions that lead or passions that alienate and cause conflict. There is a lot of square energy that is happening between Venus and Mars and the sun and Uranus and the moon and Uranus. So, when you have square energy, there is potential for that to erupt into, especially you got Uranus in the mix, potentials for, disruption or conflict. And, you get the sense that here is this very powerful Venus moment. Venus is exalted, so passions are running a high fevered pitch right now, and it's almost as if Venus is communicating to Mars saying, I'm gonna be artistic, be creative, follow my pursuits of desire, consequences be damned. Almost, you get the sense that it's sort of a little bit like that. Now, so that could go one of two ways. You've got the moon who is culminating and receiving that full light and is waxed to the point of being a fruiting kind of moment. And so is she fruiting in the light of Venusian bliss and happiness that is bringing her into the spotlight as a leader or as somebody that's very gregarious and social? Or is she going a bit too far and just letting passions lead the way that has the effect of maybe bringing some alienation in or some conflict in along the way? So that is kind of the sense that I get from this full moon just in general. But some other themes I have for this are things like a time of just basically feeling good or feeling socials, maybe a time where you're socializing, having a party or something like that, getting together with friends, feeling like you're in the spotlight, like the queen. Um, Also, we can see support from the underdog or for the underdog. Maybe this is just as simple as a sports kind of analogy where it's a weekend of sportsmanship or watching sports or something like that, and you get the sun in his opposite temple that he naturally resides in, the Aquarius opposite to Leo. And so the sun in that opposite place has a little bit of that underdog quality to it. But now, one interesting dynamic about this full moon is that the sun is the host of the full moon, right? The sun is the domicile ruler of Leo, and the moon and the sun are in that opposition. So the moon gets visual communication from her host, but the sun is giving that communication from a place where he is in kind of a funky spot, right? He's in exile or a contrariety. He's in the place where he is as far away from his natural temple as he can be. So you get the sense that there's kind of that underdog authority figure or that rebel spirit that is somehow providing a little bit of support to the moon in her moment of glory. So yeah, kind of an underdog situation, whether that's you rooting for the team that's going to lose, or maybe the team that's going to lose is rooting for you. Okay, so another theme I could see is taking charge to wrap things up. The full moon in coming to culmination. Have you been working on something that you're now getting to kind of the light at the end of the tunnel? Taking charge to wrap things up and getting help from those that may also want you to do something for them in return. Or will have to do something in the future, like a boss or a father, or maybe even like a governmental agency or figure, or something like that. Some person that is helping you out, but that will require something. So I don't know, maybe this is you have to get your car fixed or something, and your friend comes along and says, "Oh, your dad comes along and says, well, I'll give you, I'll give you some money to fix your car, but then next week you got to drive me to Toledo," or something just a little bit unusual like that. I could see something like that coming along. So if you're getting support right now, at what price does that come? That's one of the themes I could potentially see for this full moon. Consumed by passion that seems like everything, eternal legacy. Given that exalted Venus is bringing in all of this passion to Mars, and Mars is full of ideas right now and wants to do all kinds of things, this could definitely be a moment, I think, where you just get overwhelmed or consumed by some kind of passion or desire, or artistic feeling, something in the body that just seems like it culminates in the sign of Leo with a very bodily, the moon representing the body, like a bodily feeling of being overwhelmed, and that sense in Leo that we get that there is this central importance of a spiritual calling. Like the sun itself, the sun radiates that central importance. The sun is the central planet that everything revolves around, that makes life possible by its glory. So could the passion and the glory sort of come together in that culminative moment to really just make it feel like whatever we're passionate about, whatever lust is coursing through our veins, could that just seem like everything at the moment, like it's just going to be forever, or like it needs to be forever, or like it's going to be something of legacy? I could definitely see themes surrounding archetypal concepts or motivations like that. Okay, tensions in a marriage relationship, maybe in the family, or even within your own body or mind, or within your mood, or just in an environment that you find yourself in. Tensions to maybe standing on your own, work or ambition that is sort of separated out from the other side of things, revolutionary ideals. And of course, we have freedom in relationships and love, etc., because we have that connection to Uranus. So is this a full moon where some of us will go through kind of this tension with the home or the mood or the mind, the local environment that we're in day to day, and what we have to do as an individual, maybe apart from all of those things, or as somebody that is working through something in a relationship or something like that, or in love. All right, and let's see here. I didn't number these themes, so I guess let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, technically we'd be on theme number 7 here. The culmination of recent efforts focused on an ideal image of duty, perhaps, bringing things into stability, or a revolution in the home or family that brings you to a new chapter. So this is getting at maybe as the new moon came through earlier, a couple of weeks back, maybe there was a sort of the beginning of some kind of effort that may had to revolve around an image that you got at that time with that Saturnine sense of duty or obligation or responsibility. You know, the sun and the moon going through a new moon moment in one of Saturn's signs may bring in this very mature kind of like, hey, this idea wells up, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, I should really be doing this responsible thing in my life or with my family or at home, or maybe there's something you're working on that has that more Saturnine quality to it, hard work, responsibility, things like that. And is this a time where that leg of that idea is sort of coming to fruition, or it's coming to kind of the top of the hill for the current moment? And this would also have this interesting concept. I think it would be surrounding some notion of like, things need to be, we're doing it all for things to become a little bit more stable or permanent, or this is the right time to make something more shored up with what we're doing here. It could be a revolution of some kind too, that Aquarian revolutionary feeling where it's like oh my gosh, I never thought of this. I give you an idea. So we recently I made this huge dinner table like a couple years ago, and it was so big that it didn't really fit into the space that I had it. So eventually I took it out, and my wife has been telling me for like years now, she's like, why don't you just cut the table down to size? Because I make all of this homemade furniture at home. I like to do it, and I get to make it exactly how I want to. And it's not the best furniture in the world, but it's decent, and it actually looks pretty good. But it was just too big, and so I told her, I said, I worked really hard on that. I'm not gonna chop that up, and make it smaller. But lo and behold, about a week ago or so, I just realized that she was right. And I said, you know what? Why not? Like, I'm just going to keep this thing out in storage for the rest of its life. Well, what's the point in that? It's like, I love it so much that I wouldn't, ruin it. But it's like, well, do I love it so much that I'll never use it? And that revolution of the mind was just like, oh, that makes more sense now. And so we hauled it out. I chopped a foot off of each side. We sanded it. We restained it. It's gorgeous now. And we made it better than it ever was. We put it into the space. And now the whole family is just massively enjoying this thing, to the point of literally every night we sit down at this thing and we're like, oh man, this is nice to have this table in here. We all love it. And I think to myself, all these years I could have had, we could have had this, what seems like a very, very nice homely luxury or comfort, having this nice table in here, and I never did. But it was like, it took me aback. I was like, wow, this is like a revolutionary idea for me. It's like, all this time we could have been enjoying this. It's so much better now. So there's a little bit of that. Like, is something like that sort of culminating right now? A revolution in the home or the family, because we're dealing with the moon. The moon represents those things sometimes, that brings you to a new chapter. So, okay. And theme number, what is this? 1, 2, 3, 4. Is this 8? Theme number 8 is the Queen versus a populist movement, or a queen that reflects the sentiments of the populist themselves. Yeah, that whole full moon dynamic where you have the sun in Aquarius, and Aquarius, that Saturn ruled figure, is always standing in between the status quo, the past, the popular group, as it were, with maybe the rebels or the outsiders, those that dwell outside of the gates. That's because Saturn sits on the numinous beyond. He's the last visible planet in the solar system. And I say this all the time on this channel, but he, from Saturn's perspective, he looks out to the eternal beyond, and he has that desire for wide, expansive, eternal views. But he also looks back and sees the order of the system working to the other side of him. So he sits on that borderland. He's a god of the borders. Sometimes people say he's the god of walls. And I think he is, but insofar as he is really the god that sees both sides of the wall. And he's also the god of the opposition, which is what we get when we get a full moon. We get the sun in opposition to the moon. So you do get this interesting dynamic where you could have the dynamic of the popular or the majority in opposition to the queen, right? The moon in the sign of the sun's glorious place. And so could the queen be going against the populist movement? Could she be saying, I'm the queen, I do what I want, I have authority, you will do what I need, or whatever? Or, given the fact that the full moon is a reflection of the sun, do we find a queen that says, hey, the disenfranchised, those that are outside the gates of the palace, well, I'm going to bring them in too? So I wonder if you get the sentiments being reflected of the populace through the symbolism of the queen, or through the queen's reflection of the community. Okay, and then the last one I have is vanity versus humanity, or vanity from humanity. So this is, I guess, a little bit more of the shadow quality of Venus, going through that square with Mars, and maybe the sun being in his place of contrariety in Aquarius, and also the queen, the moon, being in that place where there can be some vain pursuits in the sign of Leo, when the sun is so blinded by his own light. When planets pass through the sun's domicile, they may have a bit of vanity because they're blinded by that all-consuming vision. So could there be a sense of my vanity versus the humanity of Aquarius, a little bit like the last one? Or could it be vanity from humanity? So in other words, like a virtue signaling, where you're saying, well, I'm holier than thou because I help out the poor and needy. I've made my donations this year, so look at me, kind of a thing. So that is a little bit more of the shadow side. Now, of course, there are a lot of other aspects that are happening, and I made content about all of those earlier this week: the Venus square to Mars, the Sun square to Uranus, and even the contra antitia between Neptune and Jupiter. So that is all playing into the mix here as well, but it's just too much to encapsulate into one video. But if you want like the broadest sense possible for this full moon, as everything begins to culminate this weekend, I recommend going ahead and looking at some of those videos I made earlier in the week. But as always, thank you so much for watching, everybody. I hope you do have I hope it's more of a grand Venusian kind of weekend where you just feel social and happy, and that everything is going to be fun and just a good time. So take care of yourselves, and I'll see you again next week as we get into more astrology content for the week ahead. Thanks so much, everybody. Have a great weekend. I'll see you soon. Bye for now.